All right, welcome to the live, everybody. Everybody, welcome to the live. Hey, we're just here to have some fun, talk about some relationship stuff that's helping make everybody's life a little bit better.
Welcome to our Friday Night
All
Live.
right, let's go ahead and get started. We got a good special guest. She's on the podcast, but I'm not going to give too much away. I'm going to go ahead and let her speak about all her stuff, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. So
And thanks for joining us this Friday.
that's right. All right, guys. Like I said, we got a guest in the studio today, and we're going to be talking with Liz, Elizabeth Palinski. She's a marriage counselor, therapist, just a little
For
bit
let's
for
let Liz
for
do a thing.
military
But she is
couples.
from our episode. What was the name of our episode? What episode number is
It
it?
was episode number 76.
All right. So episode number 76 is when our Liz was our guest. So let's bring Liz in.
Hey, Liz.
Hi,
Hey,
Liz. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm
All
doing
right.
great.
It's been a couple of weeks since we last spoke.
It has, and a lot has happened.
All
Yeah, a
right.
lot has happened.
I hope all good.
Yes, yeah. I was already not to like get started too quickly here, but I was already thinking like our podcast episode, and
Hmm.
then this Thanksgiving was my first time doing Thanksgiving with my husband's family, and so that brought up
Oh.
lots
Ah,
of interesting things.
yeah. Now you got some stories now, right? Right.
Yeah, so I feel like there's so much to talk about.
So we definitely have to come back and do a part two. So
Yeah.
Liz, let our viewers know a little bit about yourself and what your specialty is.
Yeah, so I am a marriage counselor and I do emotionally focused couple therapy. And I mostly work with military couples and veteran couples. And so that's kind of where my specialty is really helping military and veteran couples feel more secure in their relationships and have better communication and have a better feeling of sort of emotional connection and emotional intimacy in their relationships.
Okay.
And when I
Yeah.
found out is it's not much difference between a military couple and just a civilian couple, if I would say,
I
because
think there's a lot. Wouldn't you say there's a lot?
it's
There's a lot of
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
it's not
I
that much.
suppose
We
you
do the
could
same
say
thing. I mean,
That's
listen,
probably, well, you mean we go through the same trials
we
and
deal with
Yeah.
some of
tribulations.
the same things. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like
Yeah, but
besides
they're
dealing with,
well, no, because you're not in the military, so you don't know
I
their
don't
mental
know.
anguish,
I don't
right?
know. Liz' husband had the same thing with the dishes. I mean, like that's a civilian thing.
Okay, so I think we have the
There's
same
a
right. I think we have the same
yeah.
marital issues. We just don't have the same, other aspects, right?
Okay, right.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But
So what is your take on the list?
It's both and, right? So,
good answer.
yeah. 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 Every couple has the same type of baseline stuff, but then for sure the military adds extra stressors to a marriage that civilian couples don't have to deal with.
And so you got into this from your childhood, right? From your background?
Yes, both my parents were active duty Navy, and that I think put a big strain on their relationship. Probably some regular marriage stuff put a strain on their relationship as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then my dad, I know he's had several relationships, and
Right.
that is fine. But I know that the military played a big role even in his second marriage and adding to the stress.
Added to the.
Um, mhm,
So
yeah.
would you say that you took from their relationships, your parents, and then kind of built yours and then went into this field? Has it, so did you do that? And then has it made your marriage a little better by you being in the military, by being a military marriage?
Yes. So yeah, I think that because I knew that my parents struggled so much, I really had an interest in relationships even before I became a therapist. So I would read lots of books and things, about relationships, um, and would use that when I was dating, trying to
Okay.
figure out like how do I pick a good partner. Um, I was always pretty thoughtful and intentional about relationships. It was when my husband and it was during my master's program when I went to school for social work to become a therapist. In the first place, I became interested in emotionally focused couple therapy at that point, but never had the opportunity to pursue it because when I graduated, I worked for the government, and all of the government sort of, whether it's state government or federal government, both tend to have a push for individual counseling. Like, let's work individually on your anxiety or depression or something. And marriage counseling is just not really promoted, and not in a government setting. So when my husband and I were dating, and he was in the military, and we were becoming serious, and like, how is this going to work and things like that. I knew that I would have to leave my job to follow him around. And so then I said, well, I'm going to pursue being a couples counselor because that was something I had always wanted to do.
So do you think there's a big need for couples counselors, whether in the military or not?
Yes. Yeah. Gosh, I wish I actually have a paper that I wrote that I just submitted for publication that like looks at the ratio of different types of mental health providers to the population. And marriage and family therapist is the smallest one. Wow. So out of psychiatry, psychology, social work, licensed professional counselors, and then marriage and family therapists, that's the smallest group compared to all the other mental health professions.
I was going to say, and I'm sure after this podcast, there's going to be more, right? Because we're bringing awareness to that area, because that's why in my opinion, excuse me for interrupting.
No, that's good, babe.
But in my opinion, I think that's why so many marriages fail. A lot of people aren't like you. They see the issues from their parents, right. But instead of taking a proactive stand where, like you said, you read books, you were intentional in your relationship, they don't realize the impact that it has on them and their background and choosing a mate, getting into a marriage, the issues of the marriage. So I think bringing awareness and us taking marriages off of cruise control are going to help marriages actually find those things that are preventing us from elevating, from being successful, from being loving, being able to actually go into a marriage where we're all happy and continuing that way without letting the issues of the past kind of take over. Right?
Right.
That's what they are.
It's always right. Your past. It's always your past. It's always your upbringing that gets in the way of your relationship.
Recognizing, right. And in the military, it may be the past and the current.
Yes.
Because it's a combination of the two. But understanding how to deal with those issues. That's where the problem lies. That's where the gap is. Finding that gap to what makes a successful marriage and what doesn't make a successful marriage is where we need to be. And so that gap needs to be closed by prevention and recognition, by recognizing what is actually going on.
Yeah. Now, I figured that it's probably kind of negative that, you're a couples therapist and it's like, we don't have any issues. So how do you get past that barrier? How do you get them to feel relaxed to even start to talk to you about their issues?
Yeah. Well, I guess I get really nosy. I get really nosy. Yeah. I'm kind of like, let's rip the Band-Aid off. I maybe give us like a few minutes to just get to know each other, and have some
right in, right?
Yeah. I usually start with like, what are you hoping to get out of couples counseling? So that way they can tell me from their perspective kind of what's going on. I always make sure I get like the love story, because that's so special for people to know, like, how did they fall in love and what were they attracted to about each other. But on top of
that's your stitches to stitch them back together, right? So you need that history.
Yeah.
So when things get rough, you're like, well, remember why you guys fell in love?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it helps. But I ask them I get really, really nosy. Like, I ask them about their sex life. I ask about communication. I ask about if things ever get violent, because that actually happens for 80% of couples at some point during their relationship. And then after I get nosy about the relationship. I get nosy about each of the people individually. So I have individual sessions with both people, and I get, how were their relationships with their parents? Any significant events happen in their childhood? Did they have any sort of abuse or neglect? How were I ask about all their previous relationships, how those relationships went. So I get really, I just dive in.
So what happens when you feel as though people aren't truthful or forthcoming? Because that most of it, sometimes we are.
If you're talking about past relationships, I
or
know
just
that
a
could
lot
be.
of things. Sometimes, like you said, you get really nosy. People don't want to air their baggage.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what do you do when because I'm sure you can tell when people aren't, or even if they're a good liar, right? Even if they're a good cover up, then their mate does like this. What?
Yeah, I never knew that. Right.
So you ask a question, and then they answer, which is not truthful. And then what do you do? Like, how do you get people to actually commit to taking this serious and being on the road to a better relationship? So what do you do in those instances?
Yeah. I suppose I have two thoughts that are coming to my mind. One is that if it is a real lie and people are not being truthful, then it'll come out. Well, so that's my second thought, is because oftentimes couples are just seeing things from two very different perspectives.
Okay.
Right? And I hear that a lot, where one person says, "Oh, this person is totally lying." And really what it was they were seeing it from very, very different perspectives. And my job is to try to figure out how are both of the perspectives actually happening at the same time. But there are definitely times where people lie to me about having affairs or having other partners on the side or something like that. And it eventually comes out. I realize not everybody is going to be completely truthful or even share some of the deepest, darkest stuff.
Because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only is it hard to say it, but it's hard to commit to it. It's hard to acknowledge it for ourselves, right? So we have to own up to our dirt.
Now, are these not only that, is this like a pre-meeting when you sit down before you actually have your first session, or do you just start right from the very first meeting? You sign up, you're going to do couples counseling, and then you just go right in with the questions?
So sometimes I offer free consults for people to meet me and ask me questions and learn about the type of therapy I do. Some people do that. Not other people just sign up. But the first meeting is always the three of us, me and the couple. And that's where we just get to know each other. I get information about, how they fell in love, what's happened over the course of their relationship, the big things that they want to work on, how they feel their communication goes, their fighting, and if they have any concerns about their sex life. Some people won't tell me that when they're together, but then they might tell me that in the individual session.
Sure.
So I hope that answers the question. And then, so after that first session, the three of us, then I meet with each one individually. And then after that, it's always the three of us again.
Okay. So do you counsel both? So when you say military families, is
Mm-hmm.
that both active and people who have actually retired, or where's the, in what aspect?
Yeah, all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had couples where both people were in the military.
Okay.
I've had couples where one person was in the military, and then I've had a lot of veteran couples as well.
Oh.
So are you actually doing Zoom sessions? And I ask that because I know a lot of couples are separated right now. So when you say the three of you meet, does it have to be in the physical aspect, or can you meet over Zoom, where
we can meet over Zoom? Yeah, we have a HIPAA compliant Zoom platform. So it meets it's encrypted in some fancy way to meet the requirements,
Right.
And so, yeah, sometimes, I have couples who started during COVID who they got used to working online, and even though they can come in person now, they still
Oh,
stay
really?
online. So
Oh,
I've just never even met them in person, but it's going fine, So, and sometimes they're together, like Jason and Tina, you're together in the same room, right? And then
right.
other
Mhm.
times
Okay.
they are separated. And that's pretty common, like if it's more of a middle of the day type of appointment and they're in different locations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Yeah.
what episode, Jason? Do you know what episode
I
and week?
Yeah, I do. I know what
Yeah, see, normally
episode.
it's usually easier than this because it's usually the Wednesday before the Friday. But we
Uh-huh.
have a backlog,
Yeah.
so we have a list of Wednesday people to do on Friday. So we have to now. So what was it, about 3 weeks ago, Liz, that your episode came out?
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
November
Was it this?
17th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
All right.
17th when it came out.
All right.
So on that episode, Liz talked about helping military families save their marriages. Episode number 16 under legendaryrelationship.com.
16.
Not 16, 76. legendaryrelationship.com. 76. So it's episode number 76. It was fascinating because we talked about military families, but really we talked about civilian families and
we just talked about
crossover.
issues.
And
We
we
were
just
just-
talked about
Absolutely.
issues. One thing that I took away from that episode was true strong leaders in a relationship and what problems that can cause. Like I'm not going to appear to be weak, and I'm not going to appear to be weak, and so
Right,
here we go,
right.
right? So I took that away from the episode, and I also found out I said there was a lot of similarities, because I'm talking about the dishes, right? So
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah, right.
Everyone has issues with the dishes, right?
Everyone have issues.
Everybody has issues
Yes,
with the
yes.
dishes.
So if you guys didn't see the episode, Liz and her husband have dishes issues. But you know what? Liz has found a great way of, maintaining her marriage.
Yes.
Right? So it's like Liz says it's like a business, right? Everything is I think all relationships are like a business.
For sure.
Yes, we have to find a way to make them work, and we have to use our skills in business to put them in marriage. I think that's
Yeah.
that's a good thing. We don't realize that people skills are people skills, right?
Yeah.
Relationship skills you can use in all aspects of your life. It just doesn't have to be. If there's skills at work, we can definitely use them at home.
So how do we find a balance in our relationship? How because we're dealing with the kids
Stresses
and
of the military.
stresses in the military,
Stresses of
kids
work, right.
being away, all of those things. So how do we find a balance?
And is it easy?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with one at a time.
Okay.
So the thing that came to my mind when you asked that just now, Jason, was like something called rituals and routines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So and a routine can be pretty hard with the military. Maybe it's like I have a routine and then something changes and I create a new routine. I think the military is a lot of creating new routines over and over and over and over and
Oh,
over
wow.
again.
Okay.
But as much as possible, having a routine where our life together follows a similar structure, that helps couples a lot, and it also helps people for individual mental health as well.
Sure.
But like we eat dinner together, like that would be a routine, or like something that my husband and I just have started talking about doing is we were talking about maybe going on walks together, like
Okay.
taking our coffee in the morning and going on walks together.
Mhm.
That would be like a routine that we could do. And then there are things that are called rituals. So maybe they're not daily or weekly, although they could be. But there's something that holds really special meaning for us in the relationship. And so I think I mentioned the Gottmans probably in our episode when one of the ones that they like to talk about that's a ritual is a 6-second kiss.
Okay.
To say goodbye and to say hello, and that is something that sort of signifies like we're special to each other, like having these special moments together. Yeah.
Okay. So it's really not
Yeah.
that hard. You just have to create them. We have to start
Mhm.
creating things that are meaningful in our marriage and kind of sticking to them.
Yes, and that's the part that I think is really hard, is the sticking to it. um,
Right.
yeah.
Right. It takes a minute to get a routine in, right?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And especially once kids are in the picture. I see a lot of couples where they have a routine or they have rituals, and
Right.
then kids come into the picture and all of that
Woo.
kind of, out the
Yeah.
window. Out the
Yeah.
window. And
Yeah.
so that is,
Having three of them, I understand that. Yep. Changes the whole
yeah.
routine and the rituals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's tell our viewers where they can find you.
Well, before we do that,
Okay.
let me talk about just a second about
Okay.
Okay.
where the podcast is. All right. So the podcast comes out every Wednesday. It's Love and Beyond the I Do. You can get it at loveandbeyondtheido.com. It's fresh content, just like what Liz is talking about here. I mean, we get into it. We understand that marriage is marriage, and people go through different things, and we're here to help you be better in your marriage. No marriage is perfect, right? But we're striving to get better. I know I'm trying, baby. I'm trying to be as perfect as I can. It's even tough for me, and I'm pretty good.
All right. So the other thing is lovingBeyondTheIDo.com, or you can get us anywhere you listen to your podcast.
That's right.
You can also see us on YouTube.
Yep.
At Love and Beyond the I Do.
Yes.
All right.
Or you can be on this channel, which is Legendary Relationship, because we have two. Because Legendary Relationship sponsors the podcast. So go to Legendary Relationship, subscribe, and give us a like over there as well. All right. This is where you get this kind of content. You'll get the podcast the full podcast over there at Legendary Relationship. I mean, over at Love and Beyond the I Do. But over here, it's a more relaxed atmosphere. I think it's always relaxed when it's with us. But yeah, it's a relaxed atmosphere. And yeah, you can just kind of interact. And right. Yeah. You can get you can get other stuff. We got merchandise and stuff over there. So it's a lot over there. Right.
All right.
So now let's go ahead and get to Liz.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that our viewers know where they can reach us. Let's see if we can reach Liz.
All right. So let me get all right, Liz.
Yeah. Okay. It's like, which one are we starting with here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I do marriage counseling. And if people are interested in marriage counseling, they could see my counseling website, which is ElizabethPalinskiCounseling.com. I do, like I said, emotionally focused couple counseling. And I am currently licensed in 3 states: South Carolina, Arkansas, and Virginia. And I see people online. Like right now, I have a couple where one person is in Virginia and the other one is in one of the other states that I'm licensed in. And so that kind of works out well, especially for military couples if they're separated. I've had a few different couples where somebody was in South Carolina and the other one was here in Norfolk. But anyway, that's maybe a longer story. So, yeah. And then I have my podcast, which is the Communicate and Connect podcast for military relationships, that can be found at communicateandconnectpodcast.com. And, any of the podcast platforms that somebody wants to listen on, it's there.
So many now.
Yeah.
Right.
So thanks. I mean, that's wonderful.
All right. So I think that concludes our Friday Night Live. This is just a recap of having our guest on Wednesday. And again, we thank you, Liz, for taking the time out to actually speak to our viewers, talk to us, and recap about some of the special things that's going on with military families and in relationships.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Liz, and it was fun doing the podcast. It's fun doing this. I just enjoy the way you promote and do all these different things. Much success to you.
Thank you.
Do you have any last thoughts?
Oh yeah. What could you leave?
No.
How about so my perfect question usually I ask is, what is something that you would give marriage advice that you would give a couple right now?
Like a free tidbit or something.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the problem is that I have so many, right? So then it's like, which one do I pick?
Sort of like, our choices for men, right? You husband, you can only choose one.
Yes, only choose one.
What's the best one you can give?
Yeah. I think it would be to let let yourself be seen in your relationship. And what I mean by this is a lot of people kind of wear masks, or they
Absolutely.
present themselves as perfect, and they don't share their deeper vulnerabilities with each other. And I
Like
think,
this one. He said he was. No, I'm just kidding.
Mask?
He said you're perfect. Go ahead. Right. Absolutely.
yeah, I
Tell
guess
us
that's a
more.
metaphor for like not letting my heart really be seen, or the more vulnerable pieces of who I am as a person. And
Okay.
I think, yeah, letting yourself be seen, taking the risk to show that to your partner is what leads to more intimacy, and then leads to both people feeling very safe um, together, and sort of like equals,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
when we can both do that together. So I
I
think,
think that's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're good. That's just, maybe that's been on my mind recently. So
Okay.
that'll
Oh,
be
well,
my
good.
tip for today. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great tip. I really do, because
yeah.
so many times we come into a relationship wearing that mask. Absolutely.
For sure. It's nice to be able to, I always say,
To
let
be
your hair
true.
down.
Yeah, be true.
Let your hair
Hmm.
down and be yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, that was a great tip for today.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that it for us?
I think, but before we go, don't forget to like and subscribe to
To
the
both
channel,
to both channels.
to both channels.
All
All right.
right.
And ring that
Hit that
notification.
like button.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Liz. You have a
Awesome. Thank
great
you.
weekend.
Thank you.
Okay.